Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Beaches neighborhood in Toronto and Lake Ontario. If you're not familiar with it, basically, if you just keep going that way for quite a while and are a really good swimmer, you'll get to Rochester, New York. And behind me here behind you here is the rest of the city of Toronto. Um, I live in this area and I love coming down here, um, partly just for the view. Um, how can you look at a huge, peaceful lake and not just be calm yourself? Um, but also, it's because along this boardwalk, everybody and their cousin walks their dog. And I am a sucker for dogs. No offense to cats, but dogs are my creature. And so it's just a joy to come down here and to see the dogs at play, to see the dogs walking, to see the relationship between the owners and the dogs. Um, and that extends to my online life too. I'm more than willing to admit I am addicted to those like TikTok videos and that type of thing where it's people interacting with their dogs. It's kiss your dog and see what he does. Tell your dog it's a good boy and look at before and after pictures to see how the expression or the body language of the dog changes. I love those things, but at the same time, they intimidate the hell out of me because as a writer, as a storyteller, I look at the emotions in those short clips, the emotions in those short videos, and I think, how am I going to duplicate that? How do I write a story? How do I tell a story that duplicates that feeling? Um, I do my best because that's really all you can ultimately do. You try to figure it out as you go along. But I think the secret, and this is something I've been really getting into through the storytelling classes I'm taking as a student, and also lessons of years gone by through improv, is I think the secret is to find the truth in the fiction, if you're writing a fictional story, is to inhabit the characters, inhabit the story, become those characters in the story. If you've got a scene that needs to be emotionally impactful, it's not going to happen unless you're feeling the emotions when you're creating those scenes, whether it's in a screenplay or a novel or whatever. Um, it's about letting your feelings flow through the words, flow through your fingers onto the keyboard or through your hands onto the pen, onto the paper. Because if you don't, it's just not going to come through. If writing is a purely intellectual or academic exercise, I think it ends up reading that way. I think what people take away is the academic and the intellectual pursuit. Whereas if you're going for an emotional moment, find the emotion in yourself and channel that onto the page. Words are always going to be limited. The page is always going to be limited because you also then, for this to really work, you require the person reading your words, the person performing your scene to feel that as well. And that's what good actors do. In a novel, it's a little more difficult because the actor is the reader who acts all the parts they're reading. But I do firmly believe that within the limits of what a writer can do, there's a lot to be said for really getting into the moment, really feeling it, right? In my storytelling classes, when we're preparing for showcases and what have you, all the instructors are pretty much across the board agree. It's like, don't tell the story. Be in the story. Relive the story to the extent that it's safe for you to do that, because in a lot of cases, these are stories about personal events in our lives. Relive those moments because that's what's going to come through. That's what's going to convey the meaning and the significance of those moments to the audience. And I hear it time and time again as classmates are giving feedback to each other or as instructors are giving feedback to us trying to figure out how to craft our stories and tell what the stories we want to tell. I've got a story about, my life with my grandmother playing cribbage. And it's meaningful because as I recount the story, as I remember the moments, I relive the moments. I remember what it's like to sit across from my grandmother, having her teach me the game of cribbage, having me monitor her health, whether it's mental health or physical health, as she aged, using cribbage, using the game, but also as a portal to share our lives together, right? To check in with each other, uh, whoever was sort of in the adult position at the time. You need to get into the stories you want to tell if you really want to convey them in a meaningful and effective way. What that means for you is going to be part of your personal journey in becoming a storyteller and becoming a writer. Um, but I think it's also true for photography. I think it's true for the visual arts, sculpture, that type of thing. I think it's really true for anything you're passionate about. That passion is your entry point. I was talking to a photography friend of mine recently about the idea that I find what I'm ready to find when I take my camera for a walk. If I'm not open to what's possible out there, I'm not going to see anything that day, or I'm going to see very little that day. Um, just because my brain is shut off. My eyes aren't attuned to things. My ears aren't listening for, aren't open to the sounds of birds and animals scurrying amongst the dead leaves and things at the beach and people having a good time and stuff like that. Right? If my mind's not in it, or more accurately, if my heart's not in it, if my soul's not in it, it's not as fulfilling a day of photography for me. And again, I think that's true for writing. Like even in my science and medicine writing, um, I try to always keep in mind not just the audience who's going to read the articles, because in a lot of cases that's going to be like corporate executives and what have you, but the patients who are ultimately affected by these diseases. Ironically, I'm writing a series of articles now about a drug category that I'm taking. So that adds a layer of honesty, right? In that case, that's non-fictional writing. I'm writing about actual research and what have you. But even in my fictional writing, I've joked about I should put a mirror in front of my desk so I can actually every now and again check in with myself to see if I'm actually as angry as the characters are. Because I know my keyboard takes a beating when I'm writing a scene about an argument or frustration or anger or something like that. Am I laughing? Am I smiling when I'm writing something that's humorous? Not that I'm laughing at my joke, but I'm in the moment. If the characters are laughing, so should I probably be. If the characters are experiencing frustration, so should I probably be. God knows there's enough frustration in other aspects of writing. I think it's important that you be part of what you're doing. A musician friend of mine talks about playing certain pieces of music and going, for her, sometimes a little too deep into the significance and the emotion and the backstory of the music, of really sort of moving to an edge. And that's always a challenge too, even if it's not a personal story. But it's about making the fictional real. It's about making things that are lies, things that are fabrications, and at least in that moment, making them real. When I'm telling the cribbage story, I am sitting at the table with my grandmother, talking about things that were important or painful at the time, or funny at the time. And I feel the pain, I feel the reluctance, I feel the joy. And then it all culminates in a warm memory of heartfelt longing for my grandmother who passed away several years ago. And all that translates to the audience. All of that translates to the audience. So many people will get up after I tell that story and, tears in their eyes, and I'm almost crying myself, because it's helping them reflect, right? Friends of mine, performer friends of mine, have a show called Big Stuff, which is about them dealing with the real life ramifications of what do you do with all the stuff of your now deceased parents. Do you get rid of it? Do you keep it? What's worth the memory? What's too painful to hold on to? And they incorporate the audience into that, having the audience share things that they've kept, mementos of past moments of life, often of dead relatives. And I have my collection, including the cribbage board from when I used to play with my grandmother. But that's the power of that, is those performers, Matt and Naomi, welcome people into the story. This isn't just two actors on stage doing something that's abstract. This is two people actually re-feeling the pain of loss, of the wistfulness of those final years, of the regret, perhaps, of things that weren't said, and how these tangible objects that unto themselves have no meaning are now imbued with the memory and the spirit of the people who who had them originally. And so we all know that, we all experience that, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring it across on the page. On Monday, this coming Monday, I start the next round of my screenwriting classes at George Brown College. I'm going to be meeting 16 writers of God knows what skill level, but they're all people trying to figure out how to make this work in the format of a screenplay. But again, that's really just a format. So much of what we're going to be doing in that class, and I'm not advertising it because we are full, is about going deep. And that will be the challenge I will give the students on everything they do, is go deep. If you want us to feel it, you need to feel it. And that'll come through on the paper. So I love that process. I love the challenging of the students. Just like when I'm taking a class, I love to be challenged to go deep, to try new things, to explore places maybe that scare me a little bit, because that's where the truth is. That's where the honesty is. So again, it could be a true story that you're reliving, again, protecting yourself if it's something that's particularly traumatic. But again, even in fiction, it's about being there in the moment of each scene as it goes by, and trying to capture it as deeply and as accurately, as not accurately even, just as deeply, as real as you possibly can, knowing your control is limited after it leaves your fingertips, after the manuscript is passed on to somebody else, after you give it to someone to read. You'll get clues as to how effective you were. But, you know, it's never going to be 100%. We're not aiming for 100%. Nothing is 100%. So, you know, again, thinking of those videos of owners and their dogs and watching the people go by here, it's intimidating. You want to try to capture that degree of emotion, but at the same time, it's like, these are things that are actually happening, and God knows, would I feel the same way if I were trying to watch what is now a 3-minute video for 90 minutes or 100 minutes? Probably not. I would probably get bored after a little while, no matter how cute and adorable and these things are. So, you know, cut yourself a little bit of slack, because you still want to talk about and say something and have plot. It's no story. Ultimately, the effective ones are a mix of emotion and a perspective. Have a point. Know where you're going, even if you don't know right away. Ultimately, the most effective stories, I think, there's a direction to them. And then you allow your audience, you allow your readers to make their own choices about what that means to them. So anyways, this video's significantly gone on longer than I had planned, so I greatly appreciate your patience watching it. You know, leave a comment about the things that tap into your emotions, big, small, whatever, again, within the parameters of your feeling safe in doing so. Or have you seen a movie or read a book that snagged your heart and never let go, that you felt and still remember in the depths of your soul? Share the titles in the comments section. I don't really have anything I'm pushing right now, because again, the class is full. So, you know, I just have some generic information around here about things that are going on and classes and stuff like that other people are giving that I think might be of interest for those in the Toronto area. But again, wherever you are. I promise you, locally, there are opportunities to learn more about doing this kind of thing if it's of interest to you. Again, I'm talking mostly about writing, but all sorts of other creative outlets, creative endeavors, just things to allow you to express your true self or just explore your true self if you're not ready for public consumption. I hope you have an amazing, wonderful week ahead that's filled with creative passions, that's filled with joy and laughter, that's filled with a sense of fulfillment and appreciation, both of what's outside of you and for you. I'm surrounded by beautiful friends who let me know they appreciate my existence in so many ways. I hope you have that too, because I think we all need it. So, in the meantime, Lake Ontario, sadly, no actual dogs out there right now. Take care.